Hello, Schmoville. Well, it is episode 29 of the Schmoes Know podcast, phase 2. And we are now, obviously this may be a little bizarre because it's almost summertime as I'm shooting this. However, at this point of phase 2, it was getting towards Christmas time. I was not there because, you know who was being born? You were. You were being born, except you were this big. Say, what's up, Schmoville?
I'm big.
You are big. Say, what's up? You got snots in your nose. Say, what's up, Schmoville? You say, what's up? You say, what's up? Do the Home Alone face. Do the Home Alone face. There you go. And that is appropriate because Alonso Duralde, who is a critic on The Wrap, thank you. That's real nice. Who is a critic on The Wrap and a good buddy of ours, he came on, he wrote a book called A Movie Little Christmas. And he was on there with both Mark Ellis and the wild man Josh Macuga, who was back again. And they talked about Christmas movies. It's a really great episode. Alonso is one of the best out there. Love talking to that guy. He knows a lot. Are you just going to keep smacking me in the face? You know, you got to be able to snot in your nose and clean that snot. Sorry, guys. Part of being a dad, you got to take all this. Say, enjoy this episode, Schmoville. They're not saying it. Say, come on, Schmoville. Yeah. I have to do a lot of editing. Enjoy this episode.
I'm big.
All right, welcome back to the Schmoes Know podcast. For the second week in a row, I am very thrilled to be introing the podcast because Kristian usually doesn't let me do it when we're both here. But for the second week in a row, Kristian is absent, as is the lovely Catherine Reitman. Kristian had a baby, as you know, last week. I don't believe Catherine had one. I think she's just out. But luckily, that sound of laughter you hear is our good buddy Josh Macuga. For the second week in a row, Josh, you're back on the Schmoes Know podcast. How's it feel?
It feels great. It's like when you hit 21 at a blackjack table in Vegas. It's like, oh man, it's the same exact feeling I'm getting right now.
And you know, every time you click on a Schmoes Know podcast, you are gambling a little bit.
Yes.
And I feel like I think this is a good one to gamble on because we're talking Christmas movies.
You know, it's the genre of movies, really.
It's one of the most heartwarming genres you can possibly have. They usually end happily.
Yeah.
And we have an expert on Christmas movies. Not me, not Josh, though we are well-versed in holiday fare. We have a professional movie critic who's going to be joining us in a little bit, Alonso Duralde, who wrote a book called Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas, which covers...
It's a very clever title.
I like it, and it covers literally every movie that you could possibly have during the holidays.
He's an archivist, really. He's a holiday movie archivist, and I mean, it looks like a great read. And have you read the whole thing?
I know why you think it looks like a great read. Is because on the cover they have a bunch of Christmas movies, one of which being Die Hard.
Yes.
And anytime you see Bruce Willis hanging from the Nakatomi Plaza on the cover of a book, you got my money.
It's that warm, fuzzy feeling, you know, you get as you just know as soon as you see Bruce Willis really doing anything in blood-covered clothing with the city skyline in the background, you know you're in for a treat. Now, I don't get the Harry Potter on the cover. Is Harry Potter a Christmas movie?
Well, that's a tease because you see Die Hard and you get it's Christmas. You see Ralphie from A Christmas Story, and you're like, yeah, these are classic Christmas movies. And then Harry Potter talking to
Twilight,
to Bob Pattinson himself, giving his best Twilight face.
You know who he played in Harry Potter, right?
Who did enlighten Schmoville?
Cedric Diggory is who Robert Pattinson played.
Are you a closet Harry? We didn't get into this last week.
I'm a giant Harry Potter fan.
Really?
Yeah.
I am glad I got you to co-host this show with me.
He died in the end of the Triwizard Tournament in
Spoiler
Harry Potter.
Alert. Really?
And the Goblet of Fire. Whoops, I shouldn't have probably said that.
I'm pretty sure if you haven't seen or read the Harry Potter franchise by now,
there's like one person.
Why are you listening to this podcast? One person. Yeah. It's really nice you've been stranded on a desert island for the last 10 years, but
some random
yourself.
Guy's like, oh, Schmoes knows Potter. They ruined Harry Potter for me. Shut him up.
We are here, and Josh, I want to give you a plug as well because you run a great website called CasualMafia.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate
that. And you guys can go there and check it out. But, you know, it's a little disappointing this week because we had you on last week, and we had a great time.
Thank you.
Talking with Grace Randolph. This week, something is absent from the podcast, and the people in Schmoville listening can't see it, but you're mustache-free now. What?
I am.
You're clean-shaven. What happened?
Well, you know, all of Movember, I grew out this mustache, and we really did.
You said Movember.
Movember.
Yeah, which is what?
Mustache November.
Yeah.
It started in Australia where they call mustaches mo's, I guess. That goes over every American's head. They're like, Movember? You pronouncing that correctly? I'm like, yes.
They just look at you like you're special.
Right.
Like, oh, he said Movember. It's close enough.
It's close enough. And we grow out the mustache. We donate money to prostate cancer awareness research through a website called craigscure.com, and it goes to the University of Michigan Research Center. And a month long of a mustache. It started. You saw the fur that started with handlebars.
Yeah, I saw it in all its process. It was like watching, really, and I hate to compare it to Christian's newborn, but it was like watching a little baby be born on your face, albeit a much creepier baby than the one Christian had, but still.
Yes, extremely creepy. And and I shaved it as soon as December 2nd rolled around because we had because it's the whole month of November.
Yeah.
So as soon as that rolled around, I mean, it was the most liberating feeling you could have as a facial hair aficionado. I guess.
I'm still hanging on to my goatee because Josh did a show and he was nice enough to let me perform on it, and you had to grow out facial hair for the thing, so I grew out a goatee and I'm still rocking it. You know what's weird is that most people do not notice that I even have a goatee. Like
it looks kind of like my 5 o'clock shadow. I'm not gonna lie.
I think me and Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom have about the same goatee as he had in that brilliant film.
Oh man, call him Dr. Jones.
But we're going to be talking Christmas movies with Alonso here coming up in a minute. Do you have any, like, when I say Christmas movies to you, Josh? What strikes you? What is the first thing that kind of pops in your head?
Home Alone.
Home Alone.
Number 1.
Great Christmas movie. A monster when it came out at the box office.
Gigantic.
Made Macaulay Culkin a star.
The star. He was one of the first celebrities I spotted when I moved to L.A.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how old was Macaulay Culkin then? He wasn't the cute kid on aftershave
he was like
anymore.
A hideous old dude that was dating Mila Kunis. I saw him at Ralph's. I was like,
You wonder if it's like when child stars, when they age into adulthood, if they actually look hideous or if it's just us thinking they look hideous. Because I used to see, when I first moved to L.A., I would see the fat kid from The Sandlot.
Oh, yeah.
Every bar I went to, it was the fat kid from we ended up like doing shots on a number of occasions because we just kept seeing each other. And I was like, I'm doing shots with I just wanted him to yell one time, "You're killing me, Ellis," and teach me how to make s'mores and all that good stuff. But you just saw Macaulay Culkin.
Macaulay Culkin.
Now, was he at the grocery store buying any supplies in case a couple wet bandits broke into his house?
That would be hysterical. He's got like paint cans, a BB gun, a whole bunch of Christmas decorations he's going to break up. He somehow found micro machines at Ralph's. He didn't even know they still had those.
Yeah, his family left him home alone again for the 13th year in a row.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that movie really, because I was a mischievous kid, without a doubt. My brother was a little angel. He was 2 years older than me, and I came out like guns blazing, and my parents just didn't know what to do. So when Home Alone first came out, I tied strings to my basement stairs, and I would wait for my dad to come home and try and get him with the paint can because I thought that was safe. My mom was like, "You got to stop doing that. You're going to hurt your father." I was like, "He's fine. He's good at dodging those things."
Did he ever make contact? Did he ever actually?
No, he one time actually caught it. Caught the paint can, but most of the time he just dodged it and laughed and walked up the stairs. My dad's a really good guy about that kind of stuff.
He's a really good guy about dodging paint cans and not breaking into his own house. That's very nice of your father. It's very nice of Papa Macuga.
He's a good guy.
And then he had Home Alone 2, which was also around Christmas, which feels more like a Christmas movie to me, simply because you get New York, you get all the trimmings and the people in Rockefeller Center and all that stuff. And Home Alone 2, I thought was a worthy successor.
I don't disagree. The funny thing was, we used to do Christmas Eve at my grandma's house. We called her Beanie. And this is the Italian.
You called your grandma Beanie?
Beanie.
Sounds more like a nickname you'd have for a frat brother than. We called my grandmother. We have a grandma on the one side, and then we have Mama on the other side, which is it sounds a little bit like a creature you'd find on the ice planet of Hoth, like a frozen mamma. Yeah, but it's a grandma name. You called your grandma Beanie, and you drank 40s with her on a stoop every Christmas.
She did have a AstroTurf covered stoop in classic Pittsburgh fashion.
It's my grandma. My grandma lives in New Jersey, and she has AstroTurf. It's like from the
everywhere.
vet. Yeah, it's and that's what you walk up to into the house.
Yeah, it's so I believe so she can vacuum her front porch. I believe that's the reason she has the AstroTurf.
AstroTurf. They don't use real grass at grandma's place, man.
Never.
Watch your ACLs when you're going up Beanie steps because you could tear something.
This one's weak. So we started watching Home Alone, and then when Home Alone 2 came out, that became the tradition. We watched Home Alone 2 for like 4 or 5 straight years. I mean, that movie holds up. Both of them hold up year in, year out.
A great cameo by Donald Trump. Too. And Tim Curry.
That was awesome.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then, when you actually go back and watch Home Alone, because we're going to talk about kind of Christmas tearjerkers later in the episode here, but I tell you what, man, at the end of Home Alone, I get a little I get a lot emotional at the end of that. When you realize that this old scary guy that apparently is what Macaulay Culkin looks like now. Macaulay Culkin now could play the scary old
With
neighbor
the shovel in the snow
in Home Alone, and you're terrified of this guy through the whole movie, and then he ends up kind of saving the day.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's the beautiful part about that movie is not only did it inspire an entire generation of kids to set pranks around their house,
with fire,
and hope that somebody broke in so that they could let these pranks go. But it also, I think, inspired a whole generation of World War II vets who had abandoned their families to go back and reconnect with them.
That's right. To maybe not be so creepy, and let the kids around the neighborhood know, hey, I don't actually kill people. Buzz is one of the great characters.
Trout sniffer.
But you had Buzz as the older brother, and every time I look back on my childhood and I think of my sister, who I love dearly, who we're good friends now because we're adults, and I'm bigger than her. We can drink, that always helps. But occasionally when I look back on my sister used to beat the crap out of me occasionally.
That's embarrassing, Mark.
I don't even see a woman, though, when I have those memories now. I just see Buzz from Home Alone. And then I guess my little brother would be like Fuller.
Oh, okay. Pee in the bed?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, always threatening with a Pepsi right before he went to bed.
Did your sister have a tarantula in her room like Buzz did?
No, but a girl I dated in college who I lived with for a time had a tarantula. And I don't recall it ever. She had a tarantula, and our producer Katie is kind of squirming.
I'm not squirming so much about the tarantula. I'm squirming that you dated a girl that had a tarantula.
Everything else about her was perfect, and then she also had this tarantula.
I think this is a part of our therapy session here.
I mean, look, occasionally I'd wake up.
Everything else was perfect.
Yeah, like 2 a.m, I would go to the bathroom, and she'd be like stirring a pot, a cauldron, and casting spells. But that people have their hobbies, Josh.
She's got a Mark Ellis voodoo doll somewhere in her place.
You know what? A lot of women have a Mark Ellis voodoo doll, and I encourage you to take the pins out of the groin area because I got a podcast to do. I'm here with Josh Macuga from CasualMafia.com. It is the Schmoes Know podcast. We are going to attempt to contact respected movie critic and author Alonso Duralde. We're going to talk Christmas movies with him and how he kind of became a professional movie critic. Coming up next on the podcast.
Don't you kind of want to, when you say Alonso's name, don't you kind of want to say it like, what's the guy, Buffer? And you're like, Alonso Duralde!
When we get him on the phone, if we were lucky enough to get him on the phone next on the podcast, I'll let you say his name.
Okay.
And I want you to be like Michael Buffer.
Okay.
Like we're about to wrestle, not literally, but with Christmas movies and with facial hair, because Alonso's always got some sort of interesting beard that he's working on.
He's a man after my own heart.
Facial hair, Christmas movies, Macuga, Ellis, all coming up next on the Schmoes Know podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Schmoes Know podcast. I am Mark Ellis. Joining me in Kristian Harloff and Catherine Reitman's stead, taking the place of two people is Josh Macuga from CasualMafia.com.
Well, thank you, Mark.
And Josh, I got good news and bad news.
Okay.
The good news is that we have Alonso Duralde's book, Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas, available in stores and online now.
Okay.
The problem is we still don't have Alonso Duralde.
He's dogging us. He's dodging us. He's like Dumps in Bronx Tale. He keeps dodging us for $20.
Well, here's what I think happened is that the guy's obviously he's a huge movie buff and he's a huge Christmas buff because he wrote a book about Christmas movies.
I mean, this is a heavy book. There are lots of words and pages. I mean, hold on, let me look how many pages. 240 plus pages. I mean, this thing had to take a decent amount of time.
To our listeners, 240 pages is a day in the bathroom. I mean, our listeners are huge fan. They ran through the Harry Potter books. I'm sure they've done the Lord of the Rings. Now everybody's reading these Hunger Game books.
Oh, Hunger Games.
Have you read the Hunger Games?
No, have you?
No, but I have this constant pressure from Schmoville, and Christian's read each one of them 9 times. He's a huge fan of it. He's threatening to spoil, because my thing is I don't want to read the Hunger Games because because now they're making a movie,
right?
And I saw the trailers
with
for
the
it.
girl from Frozen River.
With the girl from Frozen River. Winter's Bone.
Winter's Bone.
It was cold, and I believe there's a creek in Winter's Bone. So I'll give you partial credit for answering the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is now the star of the Hunger Games, and she plays Katniss. And see, I know all these characters, but I don't know what happens to them. So why would I spoil the end of the movie by reading the book? It's like I may as well walk up to you if I had never seen Jaws and be like, "Hey, Josh, I'm about to go see Jaws. Tell me how the movie ends." Oh wait, Josh, we have a Christmas miracle.
Alonso.
Hang on, I believe that we have. Is this Alonso Duralde?
It is. I'm so sorry. I've been in the mall where phone coverage goes to die.
Especially this time of year. And,
Christmas shopping and dodging our calls, Alonzo.
Nothing brings in the Christmas spirit like a phone call from a mall. Alonzo, you are live on the Schmoes Know podcast. I hope that's okay with you, buddy.
That is terrific. Merry Christmas, everybody.
And Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Now, Alonzo, you are at a mall right now, and we were trying to come up with hypotheses as to why you didn't join us initially on the podcast, because we've been going for a few minutes here. We've been having some laughs. Are you doing Christmas shopping at the mall? Are you actually there to see Santa Claus?
Well, that Santa line is a nightmare. So, I should make a reservation next time. It's like the DMV. Actually, I'm mainly here to watch other people shop, which I find to be the most entertaining thing to do at this time of year.
Yeah, you know what? If you like people watching, treat yourself and go to your local mall.
There's nothing better.
And just look at all the crazies doing their last-minute Christmas shopping. And how about this for a segue, Mr. Macuga?
Oh.
If you need a Christmas gift, there is none better than the novel that we've been pumping all podcasts long. Have yourself a movie Little Christmas.
Have yourself.
It's a nonfiction book, actually, but yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
It is
I was convinced it was a Hunger Games-esque graphic novel.
Well, it is green, and Alonzo, we were talking. We've been talking about, and Josh and I have been talking about our favorite Christmas movies. And what kind of is the impetus? What's the inspiration to write a movie? Write a book about Christmas movies?
Well, there's a couple things. I've always loved movies. I've always loved Christmas, so I guess eventually I was going to put my chocolate and my peanut butter on that one. But also,
little thumbprint
as a freelance writer, like every December would roll around and editors would be like, "Oh, give me a list of alternative Christmas movies or obscure Christmas movies or this and that." And so I finally figured, there's enough out there that it kind of warranted its own kind of guide, and I didn't want to just do the It's a Wonderful Life and the, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacations, because for a lot of people, Christmas time is Die Hard time, or it's Gremlins time, or it's Black Christmas time. So I really wanted to kind of just cover the gamut of all the different nutty kind of movies that are in there. So yes, your classics, your Miracle on 34th Street, I got it covered. But I've also got, The Lion in Winter and Less Than Zero and Metropolitan and movies that you might go, oh, yeah, that is set at Christmas, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I'm glad that you covered so many different, because your book pretty much runs the gamut of every type of Christmas movie. I know my household every December 25th is a Silent Night, Deadly Night crew.
There you go.
We turn off all the lights. Somebody gets to go up on the chimney with an axe and surprise the rest of the family.
It's your own Christmas murder mystery in the Ellis household.
And Grandma never sees it coming. Every year she gets scared out of her wits. Alonzo, I guess I'll give our listeners, everybody out there in Schmoville, kind of a background on you becoming a professional movie critic. Now you can also you guys probably know Alonzo from therap.com. He writes great movie reviews on there. He's also helps run the Linoleum Knife podcast. You can also see him as a regular cast member on What the Flick, a very popular YouTube program where they dish on movies as well. And give the listeners kind of some of your background as to how you got into your line of work.
Oh, man, I think because I was incapable of doing anything else in this life. I pretty much, like many of us who do this, I've been kind of an obsessive from the get-go. I think, when I learned to read at age 3, it was so I could read the movie listings in my local paper and know what was showing at all the theaters within 10 miles of my house.
Did you just drop
I'm sorry?
Did you just drop that you were able to read at age 3 to kind of pump yourself up? Because that is pretty effing impressive, dude. That is unreal. Keep going. I'm sorry.
That is really good. You could read at age 3. And again, Alonzo, you're talking to 2 pro comedians as well, so we know that we know that whole you can't do anything else in life kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, believe me, if I could hold a real job, I'd probably have one. But
Yeah.
alas, I'm only fit for this.
This time next year, we'll all be managing an Applebee's together in Iowa. We can all.
There you go. Try the steak fajitas.
Love the riblets. Love them.
So then, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I was just going to say, it's not like there's no school for this kind of thing. I just I came up in the pre-internet days where I just would like devour books on the subject, and so yeah, it's just a thing that I'm incapable of anything else. So yeah, that's pretty much what it boils down to.
Well, and you're willing, and again, I mean, I gave you a nice introduction because you're an author, you're a respected film critic. I know you as the guy that I sit next to at all these press screenings because it's always nice to hang out with somebody who can crack some jokes and banter back and forth before the movie starts. And what I've always been struck by is your kind of encyclopedic knowledge with film, and it's almost one of those things where, and by the way, Alonso, just to warn you, we are going to test that encyclopedic knowledge about Christmas movies in particular.
I love it.
Coming up later in the podcast.
Oh, joy.
Joy to the world.
When did you start to really realize that, man, I really know a lot about movies when you're talking in conversations that I'm really better at this than most other humans?
Well, yeah, sadly, it's one of those things where, like, I'm much better at naming character actors of the 1930s than people I've met 4 times. So it's like there's a lot of, oh, yeah, you, that guy in my mind, where it's like, oh, yes, Eugene Follett was the dad in My Man Godfrey, that sort of thing. I don't know. I think actually before IMDb came around, I would get random phone calls from my siblings, like from dinner parties, being like, who was the guy in that thing about the, so that's kind of when I thought, all right, clearly this is my niche.
You realize, Alonso, that you are the ultimate Trivial Pursuit team member. Like, I'm going to recruit you for our family Trivial Pursuit, and you're only allowed to answer movies and culture, and we are going to kill. My grandma will have nothing on us this year. I guarantee you that.
As long as somebody else is covering the orange sports category, I'm in good shape.
Gotcha.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up, too, because like Josh and I are kind of big sports buffs, too, and I think the internet age has kind of brought about the end of the person who knows all this useless knowledge, because, like you, Alonso, I used to be the guy in the family that would get the phone call as to, who played what in Jaws, or who led the Redskins in rushing yardage in 1982.
Right.
And now with the Google age, people just Google it, and we're kind of left on the shelf.
Right.
Yeah, well, Patton Oswalt had that great thing about how, like, it used to be a lot harder to be a nerd. Like, you actually had to go and track down all the comic book back issues and, do all that stuff on your own. You couldn't just go to the Wikipedia page and be immediately, brought up to date. So, yeah, now it's everybody's got it in their pocket, which is, and frankly, that's one of the challenges of selling a film guide these days is like, I have a shelf full of film books because for years and years they were my references. But nowadays, people don't think of books as reference anything because it's so sort of like static. Now it's like if it's not been updated this morning, they're not interested. So it's all about getting that kind of information online these days.
Well, and I got to tell you, but first of all, books still do look good in a college professor's office. I mean, you still have to have that credibility of all that big stack of books behind you. I don't trust a doctor examining me unless there's a huge book. I want a shelf full of books behind him,
many leather-bound
or
books.
else he's not getting near this prostate.
An array of iPod cases just doesn't have the same panache.
But I will say this though, is that the one place that the internet age hasn't really quite penetrated as much as everywhere else is the bathroom. It's still hard to get good phone service in a bathroom, and that is where I think your book really comes to play. I think this is one of the best bathroom reading materials. This should be in every bathroom across America and indeed the world for December.
From
because,
Black Friday through January 1st.
Yeah, I mean, it's a comprehensive list of all of the great and all the bad Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Your mouth to the tidy bowl man's ear, Yeah, I think definitely the bathroom is the one place you really don't want to touch the screen that's going to be next to your face.
That's right. You feel a little bit weird about your finger daintily gliding down that glass in the bathroom. So you need a good hard copy book. And the book, of course, we're talking about is Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. And we are joined by the author of said book, Alonso.
Now, Alonso, did you make a music video for your book where you are covering the classic Christmas song and you're actually singing? So to promote the book, Have you?
I should have. Now that you mention it, that was a promotional opportunity I let slip, unfortunately.
Right.
But I did, with the help of my friend Dave Kittredge. There is a clip reel for the book that has clips from everything from White Christmas to Black Christmas, and it's on YouTube under "Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas."
Oh,
You can
fantastic!
Check it out.
That's great.
Give
Well,
you an idea of the breadth of what's in there.
Now, did you superimpose your face onto Bruce Willis's and then, have that famous scene and you're just screaming yippee, I would, if I could do something like that, that's what I would do with my Christmas time, is just superimpose my face onto Die Hard.
I had to keep the clip show, PG friendly, but there are definitely plenty of Die Hard moments in there because my editor is a giant fan. So, now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho.
Because, it's not Christmas unless you drop a German terrorist off a rooftop, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And then, but you also
I've always
mentioned,
thought so.
absolutely, that's how you celebrate,
Yeah.
You have some eggnog, you drop Hans Gruber, and you high-five a reindeer, and you get on with your life.
And you tie a fire hose to yourself and you run off a building. That's classic Christmas.
There was a list of potential titles for the book, and one of them was Yippee-Ki-Yay Jacob Marley, but we weren't sure if enough people would get it.
That is very niche.
That's a good place to start, I guess, if you're talking Christmas movies, and there is no more classic Christmas story than A Christmas Carol. And this is a good debate, I think, that a lot of people like to have around Christmas, is what is the best version of A Christmas Carol, and by proxy, who is the best Scrooge of all time? Because there's been so many classic portrayals. Alonso, do you lean towards a favorite A Christmas Carol version?
I got to say, my personal favorite is the musical Scrooge from 1970 with Albert Finney. Partially because I'm a big gay wad for musicals, but also because Finney plays like old gross Scrooge and young hot Scrooge, which a lot of actors don't do. They'll do one or the other. And so it's kind of cool to see him go from being like robust 1970 Albert Finney to, craggy, wrinkled, mean Albert Finney. And and like Alec Guinness plays Jacob Marley, and Dame Edith Evans is the Ghost of Christmas Past. It's super Britishy, and it's very kind of post Oliver. Let's fill the streets of London with dancing cockneys. But it's one that I like a lot. But I get the Alistair Sim one, clearly, celebrating its 60th anniversary this year.
Wow.
That's a lot of people's favorites, and I will say Alistair Sim, bar none, he is the man, to be Scrooge. He's the best one. But, there's the George C. Scott one, and there's, even the Patrick Stewart one. There are a lot of them to choose from that are pretty terrific, I think.
Yeah, and I think the George C. Scott, and again, in George C. Scott's defense, he really couldn't do a young Scrooge at that time. So you don't really want George C. Scott singing and dancing.
George C. Scott, sex symbol.
Yeah, in like a dark wig. Yeah, no.
And it's also fun because I totally forgot that Alec Guinness played Jacob Marley,
Yeah.
Sir Alec Guinness of Obi-Wan Kenobi fame. That when he was Obi-Wan Kenobi in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that was not the first time he played a dead guy. He nailed the role of Jacob Marley. And I was also, before my review, or the Schmoes review of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I did some research and found out that Alec Guinness had also played the Gary Oldman role of George Smiley in a 1979 version. And it just struck me as funny because is there a better spy than a guy who knows how to use the Force and manipulate mind? That's an easy day of interrogating if you got Sir Alec Guinness behind you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, these are not the files you want to steal,
Now, were you a fan of the Bill Murray Scrooged?
The Bill Murray Scrooge, I think, has a lot of good stuff in it. It's one of my favorite Tiny Tims.
Okay.
Because usually Tiny Tim can get really sort of wet-eyed and over milking the sympathy. So having a silent Tiny Tim, I think, brilliant idea. And so that when he says the stupid, God blesses everyone line at the end, it means something just because he spoke at all. And it actually makes that ending, it gives it some oomph. I love his big, crazy, cokey rant at the end about Christmas and how great it is, and that moment makes the rest of the movie work for me. But there's other parts, like the Carol Kane stuff. Some people think it's hilarious. I find it super not funny. And
I read in the book when you talk about Scrooge, because that is like an Ellis tradition, is watching Scrooge is one of the big ones, and you talk about the unnecessary violence. They really do beat the shit out of each other for a good 10-minute chunk in the middle of that movie.
Unreal.
It's a battle royale.
Yeah.
And but then, I mean, you know, Scrooge, one of my favorite parts of Scrooge is the opening, when you just see how the IBC network is planning on celebrating.
Yeah. The day the reindeer died and all that stuff. That's really hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Goulet's Cajun Christmas.
And then Bill Murray puts on his version of Christmas. Now more than ever, it is important to remember the true meaning of Christmas and its drug addiction and airplanes exploding. And a great performance.
And Mary Lou Retton is Tiny Tim.
That's right. Mary Lou Retton plays Tiny Tim, and Bobcat Goldthwait is great in that movie as well. That would probably that's my family actually usually subscribes to the 1984 A Christmas Carol, the one with George C. Scott.
It's a good one.
For my money, he's still the best one. Roger Reese in that one as well.
Well, you know when you hear George.
Edward Woodward plays the Ghost of Christmas Present. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
And Jess nails it because he's such this he's that party kind of guy that you want from the Ghost of the Christmas Present. But when he opens his coat and you see those two little kids, I don't know who. I mean, I don't know what the casting process for that went, but they must have seen 1,000 kids for that, booked the two kids that got it, and then said, okay, and tell your parents don't feed you for a month leading up to this. I mean, they are creepy looking.
Creepy skinny kids.
I'm hoping there's some digital trickery there, like what they do to Bella in the new Twilight movie. But yeah, but for the 80s, it may have just have been like, okay, bread and water for you for 6 weeks.
Now, the Macuga household, we're a simpler clan. We love the animated version. Any animated versions possible, whether it's the Disney or the TV movie.
Okay, so you have the TV movie of Scrooge, and then you have the film. Are you talking about the film version that came out with Jim Carrey a couple years ago?
No. The TV movie. I think it might still be on VHS in my basement, somewhere taped. It's got to be. We watch that consistently.
The Mr. Magoo one, I think, is the best of the animated ones, for sure.
That is a very good one. I agree with you. Yeah.
That's right. The Mr. Magoo one was great, and I really liked the Jim Carrey version that came out a couple of years ago. That was in our the Schmoes kind of zygote period when we reviewed that, but I really dug that. Did you get into that one at all, Alonso?
You know, my thing with that one is I have a real problem with motion capture. Like, I think, like, if you're Andy Serkis in Planet of the Apes, great, and if you are the Na'vi in Avatar, great, but for human beings, it still looks creepy to me. I think everybody's faces look rubbery, their eyes look dead.
I'm in total agreement with you.
The willy. So I'm not a big fan of the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol or Polar Express just because those faces give me nightmares.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but you also talk about animated Christmas movies in general, and kind of getting out of the Scrooge element is also a movie that came out this year, which, Josh, I don't believe you've seen. Is Josh is pointing to the chapter or the page in the book that has the Muppet Christmas Carol. So I guess we'll have to talk about that for a minute too.
Yes,
with Michael Caine, I believe, plays Scrooge in that. Is that right?
He does indeed. Yes, and Kermit the Frog is Bob Cratchit, and I think Gonzo is Charles Dickens, right?
Yes.
That's a fun one, and it holds up. I wish the songs were as good in that one as they are in the original Muppet movie, but. But yeah, overall, I'd say it's a pretty good version. I love Statler and Waldorf as the Marley brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the other great things about the book. Have Yourself a Movie, Little Christmas is it at the end of the Scrooge kind of chapter? Is it Alonzo will go down and he'll tell you who the best and the worst, you know, Scrooge is and all these other things, and you can't take a better Jacob Marley than Statler and Waldorf.
Right.
Yeah, no. They've built up to this role for their entire career. So, you know.
It's the role that they were born to play. Sorry, Alec Guinness, you have been one up by two puppets.
Oh man, that is great.
And Alonzo, I was a huge fan this season of Arthur Christmas, and it's kind of funny that Josh brought up if you made a music video to accompany the book, because I would have much rather had Alonzo singing "Santa Claus is Coming to Town" at the beginning of Arthur Christmas, Josh, because you haven't seen it. Is a Justin Bieber music video of Santa Claus coming to town. And now I'm not a huge Justin Bieber fan. I haven't seen a lot of his work. I have a poster of him in my room. On my ceiling, to be exact, but I haven't.
In your locker.
I've got a Trapper Keeper with Justin Bieber all over it.
Yeah, that's right next to my picture of Mario Lopez as AC Slater in my locker at school. And it's just real off-putting video where Justin Bieber, he alternates between being sweet and then being a little like hip-hoppy, and it sets.
He's like a steampunk elf too.
Yeah, he just looks like a rebellious elf that like sells the other elves pot on December 26th after they're done making toys for for the year.
Way to go, guys. Here's some weed.
It really sets you up because you don't know what you're going to get with Arthur Christmas at that point, but I ended up loving that movie. Alonzo, what were your thoughts on Arthur Christmas?
I loved Arthur Christmas, and I have been just all but begging people to see it because it's been marketed so terribly.
Yeah, right?
People are like, oh, I didn't like the trailer, I hate the posters. Like, yeah, I know, but it's actually a really good movie. Like, they're not selling the fact that it's from Aardman, who does the, Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit, all that great stuff. The title doesn't work in this country because it's sort of a British play on words on Father Christmas and stuff.
Also, you hear Arthur and you think...
You hear Arthur and you think, what, like a drunk?
No, well, you hear Arthur and you think Dudley
exactly.
Moore, you think Russell Brand. That's what I thought when I saw Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
They think it's a drunk, or they think it's the cartoon aardvark from PBS. I was like, no, that's not what it is. But I think this actually wound up being a really good year for Christmas movies because I loved Arthur Christmas and I loved Harold and Kumar.
I thought Harold and Kumar was great, and that's
Fantastic.
another movie. You can't really blame the marketing because I thought the marketing was pretty stellar on Harold and Kumar. It's just nobody felt like seeing it. Maybe it came out like
that's what I think
before Thanksgiving, and maybe that was a little too early.
It
even
should
for
have been released
pothead.
this weekend, I think.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they were still taking down their Halloween decorations at best. But I'm hoping that if it stays in theaters as the holidays get closer, people will be more in the mood for it. It's definitely one of the few movies that I would say see it in 3D because they actually milk 3D for as ridiculous as it is and really get a lot of mileage out of it, and it's a lot of fun to see it that way.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I think that James Cameron would be impressed by the 3D that was in Harold and Kumar because it's one of those few movies. Usually when you see a 3D movie, they have a couple things at the beginning to remind you it's in 3D,
right.
And then the 3D just kind of hits the snooze button for a while. But Harold and Kumar, every 5 minutes, there's something, and sometimes it's not really family friendly.
As one of my best friends says, he will only watch comedies in 3D from now on. But they really did. That's the thing is like, yeah, Avatar obviously was great and all that stuff, but I want the Jackass kind of 3D crazy stuff happening, things flying in my face. What was the Michael Jackson thing in Epcot Center?
Oh yeah, the Captain EO.
Captain EO. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I want. Explosions in my face, grasping 3D. And that's what was great about Harold and Kumar. Not only that, but it was a great Christmas movie. I really enjoyed it.
And Arthur Christmas, one of the best comic performances of the year, in my opinion, was the older Santa Claus. He reminded me a little bit of the performance of Lloyd Bridges in Hot Shots. It was that funny to me.
Yeah, no, it's a very funny movie. I think that it's one of those movies where there's humor the adults will get, but it's not like smarmy or smutty. It's just smart and clever. And I think kids will like it. It's a really great movie, and I think it's kind of I know like opening weekend I got an A from Cinema Score. So people who actually went to the theater to see it enjoyed it, but man, they're advertising it so badly that people are just I think turned off by it without even giving it a chance. So yeah, definitely I recommend to folks see Arthur Christmas. It's so great.
And it was a tough bill for Arthur Christmas to be on too because you got the Muppets coming out and you had Twilight
and Hugo too.
And Hugo came out too. Now because Hugo, I walked into it thinking it was going to be a Christmas kids movie, and it really is a movie for it's a family movie because everybody can enjoy it. It didn't really have a lot of Christmas themes. I loved the movie, but I don't really see kids getting that into Hugo because it's so slow and kind of drawn out of a story.
Yeah, it takes a while to get going, and so I think that like if kids can make it through the first hour or so, then things pick up and they'll be more into it. But it's definitely you have to be kind of patient with it because it doesn't sort of hit the mark as often as it ought to, at least when it's getting started. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a great movie for kids. Definitely, it's a good sort of gateway drug for kids to know about, old movies, which is always a good thing.
And anytime you talk about gateway drugs and kids experiencing them, I don't think you can go wrong there.
No,
every kid should have a little bit of meth in their stocking this year. Hugo, definitely not like the Schmoes Know podcast because this baby comes at you fast and furious, throwing everything at you as fast as we can. We're going to jump back into the book, Have Yourself a Movie, Little Christmas. We're with Alonso Duralde, the author, and Josh Macuga from CasualMafia.com. Now, we were talking earlier, Alonso, before while you were at Barnes & Noble or when you were at
Beverly Center, just hanging out
at the Grove, waiting in line for Santa Claus. We were talking about Josh's favorite movie, his favorite kind of family genre Christmas movie is Home Alone. Do you have a favorite family movie that you would kind of put on every year and watch to get that kind of Christmas spirit?
Gosh, well, growing up, we were definitely an It's a Wonderful Life household, because that was back in the day when it was in public domain, and so it was just always on. Like every channel would air it at some point or other. So it was, in fact, it was years. I think I was probably like 11 or 12 before I actually saw the thing start to finish, because it just was literally a kind of movie I would come in on the middle of constantly and sort of eventually see the whole thing about 3 times, but always in these weird pieces. But, I'd say now my favorite dysfunctional family Christmas movie would be The Ref.
Oh, The Ref is classic.
The Ref with Dennis Leary when he kidnaps a family during Christmas. That's usually when you think dysfunctional Christmas movies now, people usually just go right to Bad Santa. But The Ref, an underrated classic, I believe, from 1994. That if you haven't seen it and you're listening to the podcast, you should definitely check that one out. What resonates so much with you, Alonso?
Well, I love like how no holds barred it is for the first 3/4 or so, as far as like you have a married couple played by Kevin Spacey and Judi Davis, who just like could not be more like sick of each other's crap and just letting each other have it on a constant basis. And then of course, and then his family shows up and there's more going on, and eventually things kind of calm down, and maybe they learn the true meaning of Christmas or not, depending on how you look at it. But I love how unapologetically just vicious and funny it is in its sort of just insults and withering sarcasm, which that's the holidays.
And the beautiful part is this was in Dennis Leary's like 18-month span of being on the A-list when he was just killing it.
Yeah, that's right. No Cure for Cancer had come out a few years before, and he was really he was taking good movie roles, and you're right, Alonso. You talk about the couple and how they're bickering and they're kind of sick of each other's crap. It sounds a lot like me and Christian Harloff. So he's home with the baby for this kind of week. I guess his priorities are with his family more than
what an idiot.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I don't know what your family's doing, but we're having a Christmas podcast.
I don't see anything more Christmassy and family than doing a podcast with Alonso Duralde.
Josh has wanted to announce your name like a wrestler for the whole podcast. It's a Wonderful Life is obviously I've seen the film, but it's one of those things. And Josh, you made a good point when we were on break talking about how every kind of Christmas season, like the last day of school before you got out for Christmas break, you would be able to talk your teachers into watching some sort of holiday movie.
Right. And they had, and they had to like clear the movie with the principal and like the school board. So you only had like a selection of like 4 different movies. It's a Wonderful Life, Holiday Inn, which gets me because Holiday Inn, they do blackface at the one point. You're like, whoa.
They do blackface in Holiday Inn, which you're not going to get that in a Justin Bieber music video before Arthur Christmas.
That's what the Wayans brothers are for.
As much as Justin Bieber wanted to be black for a lot of that music video, he could not pull it off. Holiday Inn is, and he can try, and I'd love to see him try. Actually, I think that Holiday Inn is actually one of my favorite Christmas movies as well, because I love that the kind of there's a bit of like a love triangle. Yeah, they're both going after the same dame, as they would say back then.
I mean, and Holiday Inn did for bed and breakfast is what Die Hard did for Nakatomi Plaza. Really. I mean,
wait! I don't remember the bed and breakfast blowing up at the end of it, and Fred Astaire jumping off the roof. But maybe it happened, and I saw the abridged version.
Well, if you notice,
he does dance on firecrackers.
That's what I was just going to say. He dances on firecrackers, and Willis runs across glass. It's the same basic concept.
Yeah, those movies that you got to see. Alonso, were you ever in a situation where you got to talk a teacher into showing you a Christmas movie to get out of learning?
Gosh, I don't think so. But there was always that last day where they just weren't even going to try and pretend that we were going to actually sit and do anything. Right. So usually it was, that we would watch something, or we would just literally I don't know, she would just bring out a bowl of candy and, turn her back. I don't know. But
Run wild,
that last day before Christmas was like, we're not even going to pretend that learning is happening.
Yeah. It sounds like you went to the elementary school where Cameron Diaz was teaching in Bad Teacher. I didn't love that movie, by the way, but one of the things I did love about Bad Teacher was what was the classic go-to is when you're a teacher and you come in, because now looking back on it, your teachers were hungover a fair amount of the time, and you just show them a movie. It doesn't matter what movie, any movie, to get out of actually having to teach these monsters that other people call children. children.
I had an American civics teacher named Mr. Shalahida that literally showed movies like 90% of the time. Film strips, didn't matter. This guy had every movie still on back catalog with like incorrect information. It was just unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
For me, the best movie about how much teachers actually hate their students is still Elections.
I don't.
Yeah, with Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon. Because running for president is such a big thing in class, and you always in my school it was always bribing the kids with candy was one way to get elected, and the other way was to promise better lunch food menu items. There was a Burger King that was like a half a mile away from the school, and every year that was the platform that candidates ran on, was we are bringing chicken tenders back to Walsingham Academy.
That is
yeah,
awesome.
or there's always the I'm going to bring back the smoking lounge effort that never worked.
We're talking Christmas movies on the Schmoes Know podcast, and Alonso, and again we mentioned this before, but I was so happy that you included every type of Christmas movie. Do you have, and kind of excluding Die Hard from the race, is because we obviously know Die Hard and Die Hard 2 are great Christmas movies for the whole family to enjoy. Is there another action Christmas film that kind of sticks out to you as a classic?
One that I love that's a recent one that I think a lot of people haven't seen and need to check out is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Christian Harloff, huge fan of that movie. I have not seen it. He keeps trying to get me to watch it, and so we'd be remiss if we did not mention how much the other Schmo loves that film.
It's funny you mentioned that, Alonso, because I was just flipping through and that came up, and I totally forgot that was a Christmas movie, but that is a great movie. That's a really, really well done movie.
Why is it such a good Christmas movie?
Well, it's part of the Shane Black Christmas trilogy, actually, because he wrote A Lethal Weapon and The Long Kiss Goodnight, which are both set at Christmas, and then he wrote and directed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is set pretty much entirely in Christmas. But what's cool about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is that it's Christmas in L.A., so it's that great thing where everyone's still wearing shorts, but there's like big, giant, lit-up snowflakes everywhere.
Right.
Where it's, just that wonderfully artificial Christmas thing that we do here, where it's like, okay, it's not really winter. We don't do winter in Southern California, but we're still going to put hats on and decorate as though, this were a snowy wonderland.
We're still going to attempt to do winter in Southern California. I don't know if any of you guys have been to the Grove recently, but there's this big mall in Southern California. It's an outdoor mall called the Grove, and they have a big Santa's workshop, and I got bombarded by fake snow. I was walking to see a movie, and they have this fake snow stuff, and it just lands on your head and just kind of, it doesn't really melt, it just kind of sits there, and it's just a weird thing to endure. I hope that's not the mall you're at right now, Alonso.
No, I'm actually at South Coast Plaza. This is the sort of steroidal mall I like to come to once during the Christmas season, and just
it's the Grove's ugly cousin.
Which is gigantic.
Yeah, you just want a big mall.
I'm actually standing on the bridge that connects one part of the mall to the other part of the mall, because this is the only place I can get phone reception.
Look at you.
You're just, I hate to do this to you, but you're just that creepy guy that's in the bridge at the mall that is he's just talking on the phone. We don't know who he's talking to. He's talking Christmas movies to somebody.
He's laughing consistently. He's kind of pacing around. Somebody's giving him the stink eye.
Are there mall cops that are looking at you right now? Like, okay, if this guy is on the phone for another 10 minutes, we got to make a move.
Thankfully, no, nobody has picked up on that, and everybody else keeps moving, so they haven't had to endure too much of my half of the conversation, so that's a plus.
Well, I want to thank our listeners for enduring our podcast, because this has been a really fun podcast to do. And before I let you go, Alonso, I promised everybody earlier that I would test your encyclopedic knowledge of films, and particularly Christmas movies. You have a chapter in the book is horror films, and I think that we all know there are some classic Christmas horror films, such as Gremlins is a great one. Actually, while we're talking about Gremlins for a minute, I don't know how you feel about this, Alonso. The part in Gremlins when it just completely takes a break from having fun for about 5 minutes, and Phoebe Cates recounts the story of how her dad died during Christmas. Your thoughts as a professional movie critic watching that scene?
I think there's something sort of wonderfully morbid about it. I mean, it kind of puts a sort of Charles Addams touch to the whole thing. There's this sort of, really macabre kind of twist to it. But I love the fact that when Joe Dante went back to make Gremlins 2, the new batch, he totally goofs on that scene by having her start talking about her horrifying memory of Lincoln's birthday.
That's right.
At which
Gremlins
point,
2 had a lot of fun interplay.
Yeah.
There were a lot of kind of inside winks in Gremlins 2.
Yeah, and so she starts talking about Lincoln's birthday, and they just cut her off and move on to something else. So clearly they saw it as something that they could make fun of. So it's not. I can see where people are like, oh, where is this coming from? But I think it just sort of adds to the sort of ghoulish nature of the. This is not. This may have the trappings of a sweet Christmas movie. It's in this adorable small snow-covered small town, but we're going to get in here and mess things up and make it creepy. And so I think it's kind of fun.
That's right. And that's the movie that proves if your dad is an inventor, never trust a Christmas gift he gives you because it's always going to be something weird. Now, there's another horror movie that our producer Katie was nice enough to bring up to us that we thought would be a good test for you to see if you can get the title of this film. It's a recent, I believe it came out in the last we'll say decade to 15 years, Alonso, and it stars former wrestling great Goldberg. And it's a horror film.
He just said it.
Did you get it? I'm sorry. Say the title again.
Santa's Sleigh.
Oh, wow.
Santa's Sleigh,
Yeah,
and
he
sleigh
nailed it.
is not spelled like a sleigh. It's spelled S-L-A-Y. Have you actually seen this
A-Y,
film?
yeah. I did, and I put it in the appendix because it wasn't one I felt like really researching enough to write more about, but I do acknowledge that it exists.
Now, when the first time you saw the cover of Santa's Sleigh, did you go Santa's Sleigh? Did you say it like that? Because I think it deserves some sort of moniker of that name, of that type.
Well, here's the thing. Many of our best Christmas albums are by singers of the Jewish faith. Your Barbra Streisands, your Neil Diamonds, your Barry Manilow's. So I think having a Jewish wrestler play Santa Claus seems really kind of brings that whole circle around.
Very fitting, apropos, as they might say.
And there was a nod to everybody who celebrates Hanukkah as well here on our Christmas movie podcast. We're winding down another episode of the Schmoes Know podcast, and I think that we would be remiss if we did just not go around and say if you only had one movie to watch or to recommend to somebody else during Christmas, what would it be? Josh Macuga from CasualMafia.com co-hosting with me this week. Why don't we start with you? What is the one Christmas movie that you cannot be without?
I want to say A Christmas Story, but I'm going to go with Home Alone.
A Christmas Story, yeah, with Ralphie getting a BB gun.
Yeah.
You're going to go Home Alone in overtime defeats A Christmas Story.
It does, yeah. Even though I did get a BB gun one year for Christmas, a la Ralphie.
How old were you?
11.
11 years old and you got a BB gun.
Yeah. It was a Desert Eagle air rifle. 10 pump action.
It's a brave new world. All you kids listening to this podcast, you know what? Go ahead and put a BB gun on the list because you never know. Santa Claus, especially if he's a Jewish wrestler, Santa Claus may end up bringing you a BB gun. Alonso Duralde, you're the one Christmas movie that you say you should not be without.
Wow. It's hard to pick just one, but
Josh, that's a problem with people who have an encyclopedic knowledge of film. That's the way you can stymie them, is
Right.
you make them say only one.
Like, I don't know a lot about music, so when somebody asks me, I say Journey. And hands down, every
That's the
time.
answer.
It's done.
I've got steam coming out of my ears, but I'm going to have to go with the 1970s Scrooge. With Albert Finney. For me, that is a movie that really pushes my Christmas buttons, and I think it's a lot of fun. And it's definitely one that I want to go back to every season. That one, or there's another great dysfunctional family comedy. We're talking about The Ref. There's a French one called La Bûche with Charlotte Gainsbourg that is a lot of fun too. So one of those.
Wow.
Okay, I will have to check out La Bouche because I have not seen that. Maybe me
I
and
hear
my...
that's going to be on Lifetime's 30 Days of Christmas, so we'll check it out.
It should be. They should run that one on a loop. Throw
Absolutely.
everybody, throw a curveball in there. You know what I'm going to actually say is it's not, I guess, a classic Christmas movie, but every year I cannot celebrate Christmas until I have seen the Garfield Christmas special. It's animated. It's about an hour, and my God, you will laugh. You will cry.
Absolutely.
You will cry watching Garfield's Christmas
and
special.
you will crave lasagna.
And you will crave lasagna. That's right. If you've never seen Garfield's Christmas special, do yourself a favor and check it out. Alonso, the book is Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. Where can people pick that up? Is it available in stores? Is it online? What's the best way to get your hands on it?
Probably the easiest way to get it is from Amazon, and it's also available as a Kindle edition if you are into that sort of thing. You can always ask your local bookstore, although this late in the game, it's probably going to be tricky to get it by December or by Christmas. So I would say go to Amazon or any other online bookseller and hunt her down.
Go to Amazon.com, get the book. It is definitely worth your while.
It's
Have
fantastic.
yourself a movie Little Christmas, or if you're at a mall in Southern California, you may bump into Alonso, and you can just get him to autograph a copy.
You know what? You know what was great about this book, and I just thought of it, is you go to your family Christmas, you bring this book, and you have trivia with all your friends.
You
with
have
all your family
trivia?
and friends from this book.
Yeah, and you have something else to talk about at the holiday dinner table other than Mark's drinking problem
Yes.
getting worse. And with that, we will say goodbye to another episode of the Schmoes Know podcast. Alonso Duralde from the Rap.com, the Linoleum Knife podcast. And again, have yourself a movie Little Christmas is the book. Alonso, thank you so much for joining us, man. And have yourself
thank
a
you.
movie Little Christmas.
You too, boys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alonso.
For Josh Macuga from CasualMafia.com, I am Mark Ellis. We will be back next week, I believe, with Christian Harloff and Catherine Reitman starting again. So look forward to that. Thank you guys for letting me take you through another hour here on the Schmoes Know podcast. We'll talk to you soon.